Hello, hello. Good morning and welcome to Tany Talks Live. This week on Tany Talks, we are talking about new school versus old school parenting. This is a really great topic because I feel like parenting nowadays has changes, and I feel like parenting always kind of changes every generation or so. I feel like our parents were raised differently than how our parents raised us. I feel like and we raise our children different than our parents raised us, right? I feel like the new school parenting. Hi everyone, thank you for joining. So I just want to talk about like the new school versus the old school kind of parenting vibe. I feel like the old school parenting was like more strict, I would say, and I feel like the new school parenting actually lacks some sense of discipline. I feel like when we were growing up, right, as kids, we wouldn't dare say half the things like to our parents that like we would say to our parents or our kids would say to us, right? Because we would be fearful that like we would get slapped or something like that. Like our parents did not play. I feel like parenting back then, like when I was growing up and when my parents were growing up, like being hit for saying the wrong things or being hit just in general was a very big thing. Like I feel like everybody back in the day kind of believed in ass whoopings. I feel like we all kind of got our ass whooped growing up back in the day. And that kind of straightened us out. But I feel like also the ass whoopings could have kind of bit us in the butt because I feel like in my generation, I feel like a lot of kids were like in and out of like foster care and things like that, for like hitting their kids and stuff. So, you know, we got a lot of like ACS issues and stuff like that growing up as kids, which probably changed the way that we raise our kids these days, right? Because we're less likely to hit our kids and do like certain things to our kids because we know that there's these programs and stuff out there that's like that will come for fucking parents for like hurting their children and stuff like that. Can't do that no more. ACS is not having it. Exactly. Like before, what? Our parents used to fuck us up. And, you know, I feel like we had a lot of like ACS cases and things like that. And now since like a lot of the kids, like I would say in the 90s, were like taken out of their parents' custody. We don't play that shit with our kids no more. We're not beating their ass because the second that they go to school with a little bruise or bump, they are getting called ACS. You know what I'm saying? So we're not trying to get our kids taken away these days. So parenting has changed a little bit because we don't whip ass anymore. And I feel like we should whip some more ass. I feel like we need to bring the ass whoopings back because some of these kids are bad as fuck out here and they need some good old school ass whoopings to a certain degree, because I feel like some of us used to get our ass beat really bad. You know what I'm saying? Our parents didn't have to go that hard. Let me read off some comments and I have some requests to join. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. If you guys see this live, share it with your friends. Share it with your friends so they can join and they can put in their comments and everything. So let's read off. And now kids are more diagnosed with mental health because of the way they're being raised. 100%. I would agree to that too. Like, I feel like a lot of the old school parenting, we were very raw with our kids, right? Like always yelling at them and being super aggressive to them. And I would say like, I feel like the new school parents, honestly, I give it to y'all because I feel like we're more emotionally aware. And I was like having this conversation with a friend of mine, like where I feel like as parents these days, we're more emotionally aware to our children, and we're more emotionally aware of what we say to our kids really sticks with them. And I feel like when we were kids and we were growing up, our parents weren't taught that, and it's not their fault, you know, because it was based on how their parents were raised. You know, we were very much like, you're a kid, you can't say anything, you can't do this, you can't do that to our kids. And we realized like growing up how much that affects us. And we notice like it makes kids feel like their voice is very small. Me as a parent, I make it very much aware when my daughter can tell me how she feels. Like there was one time where I was like, oh, you're doing stupid shit. That she's like, oh, why did you have to say it's stupid? Like, I'm not stupid. And I'm just like, the fact that my daughter can even say that is liberating to me in a way, because I want my child to be able to say how she feels. Put someone on here. Um, uh, Let me see if they're logging on.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm still in
Welcome
bed,
to
so I
Tany
look
Talks
crazy.
Live. Welcome to the
Hi,
show.
hello.
So today,
Yes.
so today we are talking about new school versus old
Wow,
school
super
parenting. So
crazy.
please tell me your thoughts on the new school, old school parenting.
Old school parenting. We were more scared of our parents back in the days as of this generation. This
Yeah,
generation don't give a fuck about their parents.
they thugs out here. They don't
They
care.
thugs. They gangsters. They gangsters. I give that to them because I wouldn't dare do half the shit they do.
Yeah,
But
I feel
old
like the
school
kids
parenting,
nowadays, they
exactly
talk
what? What
back
did
to
you
us.
want me to, like, any questions you want to ask me about, like, what?
Well, I just want to know your thoughts just in general about like new school versus like old school parenting. And do you feel like the new school, good morning, hi, thanks for joining. Do you feel like the new school parenting is a better way of parenting? Do you feel like the old school is better? Like, what are
New
the
school is,
differences between the two?
all right, so the old school parenting, they have more structure. I feel like they have more structure with the routining of waking up, breakfast, get ready, X, Y, and Z. Vice versa, this new generation, you just wake up whenever you wake up, brush your teeth, and they just give the kids the independency of putting their clothes on. I
I feel
think
like
the
some
gen
parents don't even be making breakfast for their
they
children no
don't.
more. Like these
They,
days,
but wait,
like
wait, wait.
kids, they
But
get up,
wait.
they rush to get out the house, they
Mm,
get to school, they better catch the school lunch. I mean, school breakfast while they still can.
I
Like a
mean,
lot of people say, like I ask these kids, like, have you eaten breakfast? And they don't even like eat breakfast in the morning. Like, what's up with that?
listen.
Parents.
Back in the day, I used to have cereal Monday through Friday. The only time we would have breakfast was on the weekends because as parents, you gotta remember back in the days they had multiple kids. Like everybody, like that's in my generation, we come from a big family.
I
This
agree.
generation, we they throw shots and they really belittle people that's our age that has more than 3 kids. Like, oh
Yeah,
my
like
God, what?
whoever said having more than 3 kids was not it. Like back in the day, you're right. Like I guess like the use of birth control wasn't like that big either.
Right.
But like they really would like have really big families. Like my dad came from like a family of 17.
My
You know,
my mom came
my
with a family
mom
of
had
10.
4 kids.
Right.
You know,
My mom had 4 too. So what
but
I'm trying to say
nowadays,
is,
like let's say for instance, I had a baby at I was pregnant at 19, you know?
uh
Like my sisters have each have 3 kids, but my younger sister, she's 21 and has no kids.
right,
By the time my other sister was 21, she already had 2 kids. So I feel like the dynamic has also changed where like before back in the day, having a lot of kids and having children was so normal. And these days, in the new day and age, more like the 2000s, these kids aren't having kids anymore. They're
no,
like, fuck that
because
shit.
it's too
I'm gonna
expensive.
live my
It's too
best life.
expensive. Back in
Fuck
the
them
day,
kids.
it probably was more affordable back in the days. And tapping on to the breakfast situation, I feel like it was so many kids. I think that's why making breakfast for 3 or 4 or more kids every morning would be is a lot. So to do that 7 days a week, my family had a structure Monday through Friday, y'all having cereal. And on the weekends, y'all gonna get this good old breakfast. Vice versa, me, I only have 1 kid. And I pour my heart out to whatever female that gets stuck up with this little boy I got here because he looks for breakfast every
I'm
morning.
not gonna lie, maybe we're a little different because we do just have one child right now. Because I make
Right.
breakfast too.
But
I
I
make
make breakfast
breakfast.
for the whole family
I
on the
make it,
weekends
I make it a
sometimes.
thing that my child leaves my house eating breakfast because I feel like that is such an
I just make
important part
breakfast. I put me.
of them have, you know, for them living. But I also agree with what you're saying when you say I feel like it was easier in a certain kind of way to have kids back in
Mhm.
the day than it is to have kids in this day and age because I
Yeah.
feel like it was easier before, number one, because I feel like everything wasn't so expensive. Food
It
wasn't this
wasn't.
expensive. Fucking rent wasn't this expensive. Like the
No.
cost of living was more decent and the pay I feel like was more decent back in the 90s and the 80s because and then all of a sudden like everything just got like so incredibly like unrealistic in a way like it's literally you cannot
I
afford it. I feel like
mhm.
these days and age back in the day like the dad would go to work, right, and he'll be able to provide for a household, an entire household by himself. And now I feel like in this day and age there's no way in hell a man can provide for a family of 5 by himself. he cannot do it. So therefore, the woman is expected to go to work as well. And now you have two people working in the household, and then it's still not enough in a way. Hi, thanks for joining.
But yeah, back in the day, parenting, I also remember back in the day growing up when family would come over, like say for instance, deaths, holidays, kids and adults were always separate. Like kids would be in the room, adults would be in the living room. You always had to ask permission to come out the room. Like, hey, can we come out the room? Can we go get something to drink? Vice versa. Nowadays, kids and adults are running amongst like each
Each
other.
other. Yeah, I do
Kids is
remember that. I remember a lot of
overhearing
times.
these grown up conversations and stuff like that.
I think it also comes to a point, like when I was younger, you're right. When I would have Thanksgivings and Christmases and stuff like that, even the kids, they would eat like at a separate table from the adults. Like you remember there was always like a kids table and like all the kids would sit down and eat. And then like all the kids would like be in one room and then all the grown-ups would like be in another room doing their own thing. And I feel like you're right. Like these days the kids are kind of hanging amongst the adults and kind of listening to conversations that they really shouldn't be listening to. Which, you know, could kind of affect how the kids grow up. I feel like back in the day, like even remember I was saying how I feel like we don't save for college for our kids no more.
We don't.
Like I feel like back then, like reading to your children was a thing. Remember, like every night you would go and you'll get like your parents probably did it to you guys when you were younger, or your grandparents or whatever, where they would read you a book at night. Like, do parents even do that anymore? Do y'all sit down and read children's books nowadays? I doubt it, because I don't even see
people
on the
YouTube
in general.
They be, what's that called? Gracie's Corner. They put on Gracie's Corner.
They put on Gracie's Corner and call it a day. Like, honestly, I'm so sick of it. I feel like parents aren't reading to their children anymore. Parents aren't ensuring that their kids go to good colleges. Like, I feel like we're not putting in college funds anymore. Like, going to college just isn't a thing in parenting.
I have to interrupt you on that because I understand we don't, because I'm not gonna sit here and act like I read all the time. But when he was like a baby, we did used to read a lot because I felt like technology is not what it used to be back then. Like we have technology, we have a lot of different resources. These kids nowadays, like my son, I could sit here and say he learned majority of his stuff from kids stuff on YouTube. He knew how to identify and recognize a letter like A, B, C,
honestly,
the numbers.
I'm a little on the fence with the whole YouTube iPad vibe.
But that helped me also, like basically it guided him, but I also put the work in, like even with the math, like him recognizing the numbers, me trying to understand and teach him the concept of math when it came to multiplication, subtraction. You understand what I'm saying? Technology has helped kids.
I think technology
be very
has
advanced and aware.
Helped.
It does limit the what's that called, their speech. It does, I believe, put a delay in the speech because I feel like they're so mute all the time watching TV that when it comes to them having conversations and interacting with people, they don't really know how to, but they understand, but they don't know how to.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I feel like I'm kind of on the fence with the whole iPad kid vibes, because I feel like, okay, there's a huge age gap between your kid and my kid, right? My kid is 12 years old. My kid was born in 2011, right? So in 2011, technology wasn't as what it was today. Every kid didn't have a cell phone and every kid didn't have an iPad. So very much when my daughter was growing up, it was very much me reading to her, me putting on Dora the Explorer.
Right.
You feel me? Like it was those kind of shows that was on TV. I feel like even the shows these days are kind of dumb. I feel like everybody is pushing iPads onto their kids to the fact that these kids nowadays are literally having speech issues because they don't talk. They're sitting there all day on a tablet constantly, and they don't know how to interact with other individuals. Like I was saying that to you earlier when I'm like, yo, you take these kids to the park these days. I go pack a park with my daughter, and I barely see children in the park anymore. When my kid was little, we would go to the park. There would be mad kids there playing, and I feel like nowadays kids go to school, and they don't know how to interact with one another. That's ridiculous. They don't know how to speak, literally, because they're like, I feel like kids now are so antisocial and like so within like this other world that they live in, where it's not the physical world that's in front of them. And I feel like these kids live in a Roblox lifestyle. Like everything online is like their life, you know? And
Yeah.
that's just where I feel like the new school versus the old school is a little weird. Like, I like a lot of the new school ways, but the iPad kid stuff for me, it drives me nuts. I feel like
The
it's
the old school,
ridiculous.
I feel like as a parent, right? Being raised during that generation and that time, I feel like my parents saying there's certain ways of raising me. I feel like I still install that in my kid, but I also do things differently with, letting my child have a voice. I felt like growing up I didn't have a voice where I could express to my parents like I don't like this or I didn't like the way you talk to me. My son can actually tell me how he feels, and we have a actually safety word where he feels like if if he feels like I'm scaring him, I want to be aware of that because it's been times where my mom used to scare me and my aunt used to scare me, and I used to be frightened and I used to fear them. And I want him to understand, like, I don't want you to fear me, but I want you to respect me as your parent.
Right.
So when he feels like I'm doing too much, we do this thing where he says "woosah."
Woosah.
He'll
Like,
say,
chill.
"Mommy, woosah." That's when he's feeling scared. That's when he feels like either
It's too much
scared
for
or
him.
too much for him. He'll
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
me, "Mommy, woosah," and I'll stop and I'll collect myself and thoughts and I'll be like, okay, and I'll come back and um I'll be like, I apologize, but I need you to understand X, Y, and Z. My son is
Right.
a respectable kid, a little wuss, but that's nothing a little MMA can't fix. But yeah, I feel like my parents did a great job raising me because, we I used to get pop here and there, but I knew it wasn't on some abusive thing. With my child nowadays, I gave him a whipping like 3 or 4 months ago. I gave him a whipping, and me and his father butt heads over it. And he had to explain to me like this is a new thing that when you beat your kid, ACS is being called because they think that it's abuse. He said it's not like back in the days where you could beat your kid
Right.
and just go about your day. He said, and you got to understand, he's a light skinned kid. So when you're beating him,
Do you
you're
remember
leaving
also,
marks.
like, back in the day at school, supposedly, like, in our parents' age, they used to get hit in school? My, my mom was telling me that back in the day when she used to go to school, like, you would get popped with a ruler by, like, the teacher.
She
And it
went to
wasn't.
Catholic school? Because that sounds like some Catholic school shit.
I mean, my sister did go to Catholic school. They
Oh,
did pop her in Catholic school.
okay.
But my mom was saying in school, when she was in school, they were like, like teachers used to be more aggressive, I guess, and it was okay in school. Remember how used to have you like? Remember like they used to punish you in school like back? I don't know if you know, but my mom used to tell me this. Like they used to sit you in the corner, and then they had those little triangle hats, and you would sit in the corner, and you would be bad when you were bad in school. That's like how it was back in the day. Like back in the
Yeah,
day,
you
they did
was
not play.
nah. Back in the days, they do the
They
same
used to
thing
have
we
you
do.
right on the chalkboard, like I will not blah blah blah. I will not blah blah
Nah,
blah.
I don't know.
Not for
I
you,
was.
but for our parents is what I'm saying. Not for
Oh, the
us. We didn't
parents.
experience that in school. But back in the day, that's how it used to
Well,
be.
my
Like,
parents, my parents did because they both went to Catholic, so yeah. But in public school, I don't know. That's how they was.
yeah, I agree. And then I feel like the dynamic of the home was different back then than it was nowadays. I feel like nowadays, like there's a lot of single moms, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like raising their kids at home alone. I feel like
But that was back in the days too. Men would
I mean,
walk
it
out
was
on
back in
their
the day too,
feet.
but I feel
Like,
like back in the day, like you used to live with your parents longer. Like I feel like it was your mom, your aunties, your uncles, kind of all like in the same house, and it was more of a bigger family dynamic. Nowadays, it's just you, your mom, your
because
siblings.
people ain't have jobs back in the day, so it's like we not gonna kick our nads out because our nads don't got nowhere to go. Her mama a crackhead, she gotta stay with us. You don't know the reasons because we were so young that we didn't
We
understand
don't know, but
why
like they have
things
sometimes
were the
people put them in
way.
homes, right? Like, oh, put them in a home, put them in a
Nowadays,
home, put them in a home.
we have more and better resources than we did back in the days when it comes to homelessness, where they could provide
Right.
vouchers and they can shelter people who doesn't have place to go. Right versus back in the days, like damn, you can't go nowhere. You gotta come here with us. You feel me? Like you can't do what they could do now in this generation.
Well, I would definitely
So
say like in the 80s and the 90s, dads weren't really in the house. Like, I feel like there was this weird thing where dad would go out to get milk and never come back. I feel
They
like
was
that was
on
a big
crack.
thing. In like the 80s and the 90s, like no lie. And then, but I feel like nowadays in the 2000s and the 2020s, there's more active fathers in the household. Like, not for nothing, let's be real. We're very blessed to say that like our kid has active fathers in their lives. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I give it up to the dads these days. I'm gonna give it up to y'all because the dads have really been changing the game these days and really been active. I see a lot of these men out here with their kids these days, and I'm gonna say that's what the fuck it's about.
Too.
I see a lot of guys
pushing the strollers
and switching roles with women, pushing strollers, feeding their kids. You know, where it's not like, oh, women are home taking care of the kids day in and day out. There are actually men out there that these days that are really truly active in their lives, and I love to fucking see it. I love it. I love seeing it. Like, I love seeing a dad going out and doing their thing, because I feel like a lot of us, like in the 80s and the 90s, we didn't have our daddies. Like, I mean, they had daddies like in the 60s and the 70s. You know, it was a good vibe. And that whole crack era kind of fucked up like the family dynamics.
That's why you said they went to go get milk and never came back, because they was out there doing crack. They was selling them food stamps for that crack. It was a real.
Niggas was really selling food stamps, though.
They was selling them food stamps for crack. I'm telling you, that pipe was strong back in the days. It's not, you know, these are old people, you know, it's the old zombies.
So maybe the drug era had a lot to do with like old school versus new school parenting.
Yeah.
I feel like in reality, there's no like rule book on how to raise your kids, y'all. Like, I mean, you raise your kids however you want to raise your kids, but you also have to be mindful these days of how you raise your kids in certain eras, because being a kid's ass in 2023 ain't what it was in 1993. You know what I'm saying? The teachers these days are not going to be like, okay, he whipped his ass because he was being bad at home. Okay, I understand. No, teachers see that, oh, your mom whipped your ass. Let me make a phone call. You know what I'm saying? Real quick, because, you know, there's something called mandated reporters. That's like a thing that's now where you have to report it. And then I feel like sometimes they be reporting the wrong families. Like, you know, you ever see the situations like there's really kids out there that's really getting fucked up, and y'all don't pay attention, and y'all sit here because I don't slap my kid.
The other day,
y'all calling me, but then this motherfucker here got holes in their uniform and everything.
The other day, I was sitting in Popeyes because it was hot outside, and I just wanted to get some air and wait for my Uber, because the Uber took like 4 minutes. I'm like, let me go stand inside Popeyes because, you know, it's cool in there.
Right.
I come inside Popeyes, a lady come in with 5 kids. You see all the kids first, they all look. When I mean their clothes, their hair, they wasn't well groomed or nothing. So I'm just looking at these kids like, where's the parent? So the kid, the older girl, she ordering the food for them. I see a lady walk in. The lady got some nice leggings on. She's a shapely woman, very voluptuous.
Mm-hmm.
Cockeyed and all that, but she was very well put together. And she goes over to the kids, and she's like, yeah, y'all got what y'all want, this and that. And then they all sit down, and I'm looking at this lady like, wait, all 5 of these kids is yours, and they look like that, and you came outside looking like this? Like, you thought that was okay? That's what I mean by they report the wrong things. Like, this is what you report. If these kids are coming to school like that, and when their mom show up, she looks like that, that is something that you need to report, because you don't know if these kids are getting fed at home. You don't know if these kids are getting properly washed. Like, why would you come outside with your little kids with snot, ashy knees?
I don't know. I feel like calling ACS, in my opinion, like I told y'all, like I was in foster care for a moment in time in my life. Let me tell you motherfuckers something. And let me put this on Instagram. If somebody, I feel like I'm a great ass parent. Let me just give kudos to myself. I think I do a pretty fucking good job. But let me tell you, if you threaten to call motherfucking ACS on me, that's like a fucking threat to my motherfucking life. Let me tell you something. I don't play that shit. Oh my God.
But I mean, like, I don't
me for some hating ass shit. Bitch, I'm going to kill. I'm going to like kill you. No lie, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna hunt you the hell down.
But listen, let me tell you something.
And I take good care
of you. If you report ACS, like when people say, I never got it said to me, but to say that you're gonna report ACS
just the threat
on me,
I'm gonna call ACS in kids.
It's like I would laugh at that. Like, go ahead, because what is it?
I would tell them go ahead too, but like I just feel like because
no.
because of my
Nobody's not
situation.
the only way somebody's gonna threaten you to do that if they feel like they have something on you where they can threaten you to do it. Other than that,
But
they're
I
not
feel like
gonna
people
threaten
people
you.
like to people like to use your kids to hurt you, and, and that's really what it was. Because you can do whatever it is in the world to
Yeah,
me,
you
but
could.
let me tell you
Yeah,
something.
but
Bring
bring
up
up your
my
kid.
kid, and threaten my kid's livelihood and threaten my parents to my kid. Let me tell you something. That's like one of the worst things you could ever do to me in my life. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, you could. But when it comes to ACS, nobody's not threatening ACS on just random people unless they feel like they can threaten you with it. Like you did something, or they know of something where they feel like ACS can get involved. Like
No,
vice versa. Like listen,
I
look,
told you how my landlord
what
tried to call ACS on me because she wanted me to she wanted to kick me out of my apartment. I'm like, but you sad that.
but that's but you could call ACS on
People
people, but you
just
have to have
people just
concrete proof.
be
You have to
dragging
have
it.
evidence. Yeah, but I think ACS is ACS, and I feel like the way this new world looks at what they consider child abuse is bullshit, or child neglect, whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, I don't want to talk about ACS. It's kind of a touchy topic.
Nah, it
Yeah.
is, and that's what I'm saying. It is, but
Um,
on
I've
to
been
the
in the
next one.
foster care system as well,
Yeah,
so
like
it's like no. And luckily, me and my siblings weren't separated. We were all placed in the same home, and we actually had a good foster family that took care of us and stuff like that. But a lot of stories I hear of people that's in my generation when they had to go through that. That's just
no, but I will honestly say, like me and your generation, I feel like that happened a lot to us in the '90s. Like that was like a regular thing. Like calling CP. Remember they
yeah.
used to call CPS back then, Child
Mhm.
Protective Services. But like that was a thing that we kind of grew up on, and I feel like because of that era, it really shaped the dynamic of our era now and how we treat our kids and why we don't play that shit with our kids and why we take good care of our kids and why kids these days aren't being taken away because we've been there and we've done
Mhm.
that. You know what I'm saying? And we refuse.
There's
Like
some kids
remember
still
back
being
in the
taken
day?
away. There's a little girl that just died, like in the Bronx, because her mom was beating her kids. And she beat that baby to death, and all the neighbors heard. All the neighbors heard the thumping and stuff like that, and heard the baby screaming, and didn't think to call the cops. My nigga,
People like to
any
mind
little.
their business these days
Nah,
too.
I don't mind my business. You know why? Because I've been there before, and it's been times where I done hear things being in my son's father's house, and he lives in the projects. And it's been times I've heard little cries and stuff like that didn't sound right, and I myself will call the cops and say, "Listen, I need a wellness check at this apartment. I'm a neighbor, and I hear a lot of things going on. I need to go make sure those babies are okay." That's it. Because for me and my siblings to go through what they go through, what we went through, and nobody knew nothing, like
Right.
I didn't hear nothing
Right.
because y'all wanted to mind y'all business. No, I don't mind my business. As a survivor of child abuse, I am going to report anything I feel that doesn't sit well with me.
Right.
If my gut is telling me call the cops and report it, I'm gonna call the cops and report it because kids back in the days we didn't speak up for ourselves. You understand
Right.
what I'm saying? And I was shocked that when our parents said that we never said nothing about it. So this generation, you got to think of it. Kids are scared of their abusers, so they're not going to speak up. And you have to be a voice for these kids that wants to be heard and speak up for them, even if it's just a simple call like I just want to just calling this apartment located here. I just need
Right.
a welfare check. There's
Right.
these kids in there, and it doesn't sound right to me. And I just want to make sure those kids are okay. They're gonna
Right.
go and check. They're gonna go and
Yeah.
check.
I mean, I want to thank you so much for getting on here and joining my Tany Talks lives.
Okay,
So like I
then.
mentioned, we're talking about new school versus old school
No school
parenting.
parenting.
Um, and I just want to mention, like I said, there really is no right or wrong to raising your child. You can kind of do it however you want to do it. But I do feel like based on how our grandparents kind of raised our parents, really affected the way that our parents are raising us, and the way that our parents raised us kind of changed the way that we raise our children. And I know a lot of us kind of grew up in a really like weird homes. Like, you have to think about it. Like, our parents were raised in the 70s. We were raised, well, my parent was raised in the 70s. And then, she raised us like in the 90s, and then I'm raising my kid in the early 2010s, 2020s, So it's like every generation, I feel like you have to kind of switch it up as you go, because life does change. Like, for instance, we have iPads and stuff like that now. Back in the day, we didn't give our kids like iPads. We have to sit there and really play with our kids back in the day. So now we have the luxuries of using technology, where our kids now are more open up to more things. I would honestly say, like, having access to the internet, oh my God, I feel like it has changed the entire dynamic of how we raise our kids nowadays, because we have so many resources and things like that for our kids. I feel like, as a new school parent, I really love the fact that we're more emotionally available to our children, and we're making sure that our children's voices are heard. I'm very grateful that there are a lot of access to certain things, where, like, when we see our kids are not being the happiest and they're going through things, we have the internet where we can go online and we can show those things to our kids. Like, hey, you're not the only one. We're there to support these kids. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me on Tany Talks. I think the old school and the new school parenting, I like to keep a little bit of both, right? I like to keep a lot of the structure, a lot of the strictness with the old school parenting, but also be more emotionally in tune with our children as we go forward these days. So keep an eye out for my poll for the week for next week's Tany Talks. Thank you guys so much for joining. Have a good one. Bye.